So yeah, the battery did get a little low. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back to thank you as always because this is why we do this. We do this for you. Welcome to Over the Years. My name is Tim, and I love vintage items. I hunt for treasures and bring you the ultimate prizes of antiques, collectibles, and vintage decor. Join me, my dukes, my girlfriend Josie, and other guests as we search for history. Is it recording? Yeah? Alright. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tim. I'm a full-time reseller on 6 platforms: eBay, Etsy, Mercari, Poshmark, Depop, Grailed. And it is Monday, which means it was the end of one week and the beginning of a new week. And we are going to show you everything that is selling for us on all of these platforms. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I think we're going to start with eBay. So first up, we got this San Francisco Giants New Era hat. I got this in a separate hat haul that I won in an auction a couple months ago. This one was kind of cool. It had like this like fuzzy velvet feel to it. Excuse me. And that sold for $19.99 plus shipping. Next up was this vintage Sony Discman. I just picked this up at a yard sale last week for $1, and the buyer bought that for $19.99 plus shipping. It came with the adapter and the headphones, so that was seriously like a quick flip. Took like a day or two maybe. It was awesome. So if you haven't seen that video, I think there's a video for that. I'll put a link up top for you guys for that. Next up was this vintage Fenton glass. It was custard satin and it had the pink blossoms painted on it. It was uranium glass. This one we actually got recently. I can't exactly remember where I got it from. Do you remember where I got that from? Because it was one of the newer ones that I picked up. No. I think it was at a thrift store maybe. Thrift store or yard sale. But that sold for $32 plus shipping, so that was a nice flip. Next thing that sold was this vintage Sun High Tele Zoom lens. It had the mounts on it. This came from our vintage camera lot that we had, and I think we are down to only like 2 listings left from that whole bucket, which is pretty crazy. All that stuff sold really nice. Good flips. So the buyer was all in on that for $15.99 plus shipping.
I don't know. I always like it when people buy things that, you know, you hate to just donate stuff and you see this nice collection of camera equipment and you think somebody out there's got to be able to appreciate this. And sure enough, they did.
Yeah, that's always an awesome
That's the
feeling.
best part of
yeah,
it.
For sure. And then like I get like really nice notes from people who like say they bought it because they're starting their own collection, that it's the same thing that their parents collected, which is pretty cool. I had this young lady who just bought a Flow Blue butter pat, and she's like, when my mom passed away, somebody else in the family got all her Flow Blues, so now I'm starting my own collection. And I was like, man, that's awesome. So I told her, anytime we always are adding Flow Blues, so just keep an eye out, and anytime you see something you like, message me and I'll give you a deal. So I thought that was pretty awesome. The next thing that sold was this Australian t-shirt. It was, I believe the name of the artist was Danny Eastwood, and it was like an Aboriginal artwork on the front of the shirt. It was really nice. It had been sitting for a long time, and I took an offer, and it sold for $17 plus shipping. The next thing that sold was this Techniques remote control. This I just picked up last weekend at a thrift store. I think it was like $2.49, and it sold for $19, and that had free shipping on it. The next thing that sold was this really nice Flow Blue pitcher. It was like a more of a pottery, or they call it the Children at Play. It was a milk pitcher, and the buyer needed it to be a specific size, and the size was perfect for them. They already left feedback. Really great, pleasant transaction and experience. And the buyer was all in. They were $65 plus shipping on that piece. So that was a really... Josie and I picked that up in Ocean City on our antique road trip. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link up there for you. This was another quick seller. I just picked this up last weekend at the thrift store for $2.99. It was a TI 84 Plus Silver Edition, and it sold for $44.99 plus shipping. Then I just sold this hat. It was a really rad hat. This actually went out to a friend of mine who bought this hat and supported. Shout out to my boy Jay. We were born, what was it, 2 days?
2 days apart.
2 days apart, two
and
doors
his
down.
mom and I were 2 doors apart in the hospital from each other.
So pretty cool. He also sells a bunch of vintage stuff too, so make sure you guys check him out. This was a vintage 90s Mammoth Mountain, California ski. It was like a dad hat kinda, made in the USA, really dope, and it was $23.99 plus shipping. Next up was another hat from our vintage hat haul. If you haven't seen that epic video, there's a link up there for you with my man Cernock. This was a Terminator fishing lures snapback hat made in the USA, and it sold for $15.99 plus shipping. Next up was this Indianapolis 500 Reebok 100th anniversary hat. My Dukes and I picked this up at a thrift store after an auction. This sold for $14.39 plus shipping. Next up was this super old school antique 1850s John Wedgwood flow blue plate. The name of the pattern, I think I'm saying it right, is Chapu.
Sapu?
Chapu.
Chapu.
Yeah, or Chapu. But it was like one of those real deep, like bleeding flow blue pieces. It was really rad. And that sold for $55 plus shipping. Next up, so I have been trying my best to take 3 old listings at nighttime before I go to bed and end the listing and then relist it. So I've had this tennis racket. It was one of the first things that I have bought when I expanded to eBay, and it just did not sell. Finally, after the next day after relisting it, it sold for $23.99 plus shipping. So I'm excited to get that out of here because it's like one of those things that doesn't fit in the bucket or anything. It's just like tough to store, so it's gone. And next we have this vintage Wedgwood Jasperware. I mean, the Jasperware continues to sell. It is just on fire.
It's a staple.
Yeah, it's going. It's on a roll. This is a vintage Wedgwood Jasperware cream on green. They call it a Butte Bowl, and it was glazed on the inside, 5 inches, and that sold for $41 plus shipping. The next thing that sold is another one of the shirts from the vintage NASCAR t-shirt haul. If you haven't seen that video, wow, there's a link up there for you. This was a vintage 90s Dale Earnhardt RCR race, or that's the name of like the racing team. It had this sick lightning bolt down the side. It was a double-sided t-shirt. Made in the USA, and that sold for $30 plus shipping. The next thing that sold is another one of those patches from that lot of patches that I got. I'm already way in the profit on that, and I haven't even finished listing them all. So this was a vintage Continental Airlines patch, and I took a best offer because I'm already in the profit and I'm trying to sell them. So $5 plus shipping. And it was that particular one had some wear on it for sure. Then I sold this vintage Boston Celtics knit scarf, which is kind of crazy right now, and it's going to California, but hey, what can you say? So that sold for $19.99 plus shipping. Then I sold this zombie dice game. It was sealed, first edition of this game, and I took a best offer on that for $8 plus shipping. And some more Furbies out the door. This was the ones where you press the tail in the back and their eyes blink. $7.99 plus shipping. The Furbies are going. Thank you, God. Let's keep them going. The next
Furby Express.
The next thing that sold was this vintage 1995 Milton Bradley handheld electronic games. One of them was a Battleship. The other one was Yahtzee. And that sold for $19.19 plus shipping. And another piece that has sold from last weekend's yard selling and thrift store was this vintage Syracuse China. Webster was the name of the pattern. Restaurant wear, oval platter, $12 plus shipping out the door. I paid $10 for 5 of them, so I'm already in the profit and I still got 4 more to go. And another big buy from last weekend. This was, I think it was like $4 or $5, somewhere around there. And it was the Golden Tee Golf Plug and Play in the box, and that sold for $70 plus shipping. So that was an amazing flip. Keep your eye out for these. I got 2 in the same day. I'd never even seen one before, so that's the first one sold within a week.
But one was out of the box.
Yeah, one was out of the box. So that one's going to be selling for cheaper. And then the last thing that sold on eBay this week was that Flow Blue Butter Pat that I was just telling you guys about earlier in the video. And it sold for $39.99 plus shipping. So, and that's going to a great home person who's starting their own Flow Blue collection. So I'm pretty stoked about that. We did make 2 sales on Mercari, one of which is another Furby. So those Furbies are out the door. The buyer was all in on that with shipping for $11. And the second thing that sold on Mercari this week, so I had all these hats, white hats that needed to be soaked and cleaned from the hat haul. So I did a soak and some of them bled, which was unfortunate. But it is what it is. You learn and you live, or is it you live and you learn?
You wash and you learn.
Yeah. So, but I mean, they were still like really good condition. It was just, I had to make, it definitely took some value away, and I had to let the buyers know in the description that there was some bleeding. Some of them were a little bit worse than the others. These hats were really sick, and this one sold within 10 minutes. This is a vintage 90s UCLA Bruins. It was by the game, and it had like the spell out script on the front, and that sold for $28. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into Grailed. So I totally forgot. I made 2 sales on Poshmark. So I figured I'd just throw these in there so you guys saw what I sold on Poshmark. The first thing I sold was another Dale Earnhardt t-shirt from the NASCAR shirt haul. Look at that. I said it clear. No fumbling of the words. So this was the yes across the front, and it said it will fly across the back. And the buyer bought that for $28. The other thing that sold on Poshmark was this damn Seagulls hat. I probably could have got a little bit more money for it, but whatever. I paid $1.69 for it.
Is that the one that looked like it had bird poop all over it?
This one right here.
Yeah, looks like it had bird poop.
Yeah,
all
so
over
that
it.
sold for $15 on Poshmark. So those are our Poshmark sales. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. All right, and Grailed is still moving along, which is really awesome. So first up on Grailed, this came from the Vintage Hat Haul. It was a snapback trucker hat from the 80s. It said Clapper for Sheriff, and the buyer was all in on that hat for $15. Next up, this was another hat that was in that hat soak, and this was a Logo 7 Super Bowl hat, vintage from the 90s. I think it was Super Bowl from 95, I think. And that sold for $25. This one had a little bit more damage on the bottom part of the bill, but it's out the door. And once again, on all these hats, I'm in for like each hat at like $1.69. So the profit margin on these hats is amazing. Now this was the Jordan jersey. If you haven't seen that video, it's from the first yard sale I found since things started to slowly open up. Not necessarily in the area I live in, but in a little bit farther. And I found this at the yard sale. Initially, I didn't get it. I went to the car, came back out the car, bought it, and it had some dinginess to it. And we soaked it, and it came out gorgeous. And the buyer bought that for $70. I shipped it to them. Accidentally, in pirate ship, the address changed to like an automatic address, so now the item is getting shipped back to me. I'll have to reship it to them, but the person is super understanding and totally cool about it, and that sold for $70. I got that at the yard sale for $15, so quick flip, nice profit margin. Next up, this was another tee from the NASCAR t-shirt haul, and this one was a double-sided and it was the Dale Earnhardt, and it sold for $35. And the Grailed ones will include shipping price. Next up was another hat. It was a snapback trucker hat. It was corduroy in the front, mesh in the back. I picked this up when Josie and I went to the flea market in Pennsylvania. There's a video out of that also. And that sold pretty quickly, and it was $30. That was a nice flip. I paid like $2 for that hat. And then I sold another Dale Earnhardt shirt, and this one it's the same as the other one that we just sold a couple seconds ago I told you about. But on this one, the graphic on the back was a little off-centered, so I sold it for a little less. Or that was the first one I sold that I told you about. This one had the good back graphic, and this one sold for $40. So that was awesome. So those were the sales on Grailed this week. Hats and shirts. So those two big hauls are paying off definitely, and they will continue to, which is a great thing. Now, Depop sale. This is another hat that was in that wash I was just telling you about. Now this one had probably had a little bit more damage than the other two as far as like the bleeding and like a little bit of wear on the bill that didn't come out. Obviously, like definitely highlighted in the picture as you can see it on the screen. If this hat would have been not in the condition that it was in, it probably could have sold for like 35 to 40, but it sold for $24.99 plus shipping. So now we're going to go ahead and run through some Etsy sales. Etsy was a little bit slower, but it was okay because eBay picked up the pace for me. So this was a vintage Fenton glass opalescent blue optic lampshade. I got this from that crazy antique lighting warehouse that I picked through. And the buyer was all in on that lampshade for $71.67. That was probably one of the best picks I had ever been on. And I really should have just gone back and bought like thousands of dollars worth of stuff. But I didn't have the money at the time. So what can I do? Next up. Super old listing, Cambridge glass, pink depression glass, 7-inch plates. It was a set of 3, and the buyer was all in for $21.88. Next up was this gorgeous vintage Fenton glass, topaz, opalescent, cactus, Vaseline glass sugar bowl. This is probably one of my favorite patterns in Fenton. You like this pattern?
I like it too, yeah.
This is probably one of my favorites. But this sold for $50.48. The buyer was all in for a gorgeous piece.
You don't have any of that left. Any cactus?
I think I have 2 pieces. One or 2 pieces left. Next up was this decanter. It was a McCormick Mint Julep 1988 American Legion 70th National Convention from Louisville, Kentucky. The dude kind of looked like Colonel Sanders. And the buyer was all in on that for $52.18. That's shipping somewhere far. Another super old listing. Vintage Kodak Kodaslide compartment. It's like a case where you put all your slides in for the Kodak slide carousel. Yeah. And the buyer was all in on that for $33.51. Next up was this. I don't know how this lasted for so long, but it did, and it sold finally. There's a vintage Art Deco Ronson master case. It was a cigarette case, like, you know, super kind of Art Deco-y, mid-century modern. And it's also a lighter. So so many people used to pick that up at the flea market all the time after time after time. But that sold $33.54. Staying in that realm of tobacco stuff, this was a vintage Old English curve cut tobacco tin. The buyer was all in on that for $28.58. I think Josie and I picked that up at an antique store in Delmarva. Is that how you say that? Or no, not Delmarva, Havre de Grace.
Havre de Grace.
Havre de Grace.
Yeah, close.
The next thing, these medicine bottles, they're continuing to sell lately. That box is almost empty. This one was a Dr. W.B. Caldwell Syrup Pepsin. It was a 7-inch tall bottle, and the buyer was all in on that for $19.06. Next up, this was a Pyrex bowl that we picked up at the flea market for $2 a couple weeks ago with Josie. And it was the Forest Fancies 472, and the buyer was all in on that bowl for $20.86. Then we have some more uranium glass. I mean, this stuff just continues to sell. This is the vintage Indiana glass avocado was the name of the pattern. It was a set of 3 salad plates, and the buyer was all in on that for $65.93. Next up was this Romanian art glass vase. My dudes really like this one.
We've had that for how long?
We've had it for a long time.
That was one of our originals.
Yeah. But it finally sold.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting piece. I mean, it was cool. I mean, it's not something that I wouldn't mind displaying in like my living quarters.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the thing. There's certain classifications of collectibles that I really like. I love the littles. I love the bottles. I love the tins. I love the boxes.
It's hard though. It's hard
it is.
To keep
I mean,
them.
you gotta. It's hard to stop at some point. It's also the display factor. If you don't have the room, you don't have the room.
No. So this one sold. Buyer was all in. $29.42. And the last thing that sold on all the platforms this week was this vintage red top tincture iodine poison bottle. And the buyer was all in for that little 2.5-inch tall bottle for $43.29. So we did make sales on every platform this week, which is always a plus.
Low batteries.
Low batteries is okay. So yeah, the battery did get a little low. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back to thank you as always, because this is why we do this. We do this for you, in hopes of you learning, in hopes of you getting a break and being entertained, and just to see that there is a way to do this as long as the will is there. And so we've been working super hard these last few days. We're going to be working super hard the next few days. We will have videos dropping every day this week. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned for another video tomorrow, the day after that, and the day after that. Because we got it locked and loaded for you. Thank you guys very much. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.